So what we're doing tonight is, you can see that things look a little bit different, but try to minimize the amount of time in production and things. And a lot of times with upholstery, you got to figure out a strategy of how you're going to tackle something. What I did here was I put this strip on here, and this is edge roll. And if you noticed too before, the original one had a wood piece up there. And it was missing a chunk in this area here. If you go back on part one, when we get to that part there, you can see where I took that off, and it never would have worked right. I'd have to piece it, and this way here is, you'll see this, that this is a real nice way of doing it. So you don't feel the edge, people's legs, and like I said, they drag their butts, and after a while, if you don't have this edge roll here, this sharp wood will end up cutting through the pad. So this will eliminate that. It won't happen again. It's nice. This is very even when I put this on. And we're going to end up padding it out, and we're going to sew through that and integrate it. And it'll be a nice seat. And if you notice on these sides here, we have to build it up. And so it's critical we get kind of an idea on the depth. We have to build this up here more than this, because it's going to go, it just isn't right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add some edge roll here, and this will help solidify it, make it more solid in here. And we're going to put this here. This is the knife that I think that we talked about, that Jack the Ripper supposedly was an upholsterer. This is the tool that he would have used. It's very similar to hundreds of years ago. The same company still makes the tools for us. I cut that down. I like this type of styrofoam type, dense. It's dense. You think styrofoam, it's not going to hold up. This stuff's tough, but it's easy to work with, especially with what I'm doing right now. And we're going to have to put a needle through it. If it was by itself, these staples are not enough to hold it. But when we sew through it, it's going to make it very strong. It ain't going to go nowhere. Always got to keep checking, because you could do a lot of work and go far ahead, and there's something you didn't see. And this might be something you want to see here, is the gap here. So you're getting a feel for it here. This is the skeleton, and we are trying to put the flesh back on the skeleton. And this is dense foam, very dense foam, and that's all I really use. I don't use any other type of foam. I use high density foam, and if you do some research on the internet, you will find that is what they talk about. That is the best. Furniture manufacturers are notoriously stingy with the foam that they use on the seats and cushions and things like that in the construction of your furniture, because it's so expensive. And for them, if they save $1, the little college boy that got out of school that recommended that, he's going to get himself a nice little bonus from the big boss, because he's a genius. But for people that like their furniture, the people that work on nice furniture, they know the difference, and that's why they get it. But nobody had sat on this thing in probably 100 years. Nobody would sit on it. It was probably kind of a joke in the house, because who would want to sit on that thing with the pricking your butt with the horsehair fabric and then the Jack-in-the-Box springs? It might not be a good thing to sit on. So we're going to use the back part of the wood here as the guide, and I could pretty much not even see it. Is so important This is the work, and this is where a lot of people mess up, and it's very important because of the stress of the seat. People are sitting on it, and it has to look good when they get up off the seat. You could make something out of loose polyester or something like that, which I see a lot of people, homeowners will do, but it's not dense. And therefore, when they get up, it'll be like an impression mark of their butt. And it's not gonna look good. It's gonna be wrinkled. We want this tight, and we want it, and that's the way it originally was. You see, when the factory makes a particular piece or anything, I mean, they make 100,000 cars at a specific model. The first couple cars are kind of, they're going to be full of probably a lot of assembly problems. It's going to be the longest ones that it takes to assemble is going to be that one. But I have to be good the first time, every time, with every piece of furniture that I make. So I can take it apart, and this is like my prototype here, but it also is my final one. Figuring out a plan to put this piece back together to the way it looked and appeared with modern materials. A lot of people aren't really comfortable with hog hair, the idea of hog hair inside. So by using these modern materials, they're not going to be less allergic to it. Some people may be allergic to the hair and the types of things that you know, over the years certain people are just very sensitive to that. So this particular person felt more comfortable when I talked it over with her that she wanted modern materials inside. So I can duplicate it. This is ways that I've over the years have come to doing these, overcoming these obstacles of trying to give the real look of the way the piece is supposed to look and give the real feel with modern material. This curved front is problematic. I mean, if it was straight, it'd be easier to do. So you got to work it. You got to figure out, because some parts are going to stick out and have more pressure, but we're trying to equalize it so that it's not tight where it pushes out as much and loose where it's inward. It's starting to take shape now. You're starting to see we're laying the bones. We have that edge roll over the in the front there, because that's a high wear area. And I'm upholstering this right now with the burlap, and that's nice burlap I use. So I think I'm going to end up taking this thing apart, untaking the pins, because I wanted to get an idea how it was without permanently putting it down. Like I told you before, don't feel ashamed that you have to take something apart again to get the desired look. That's a professional that sees a mistake, or he sees that he can make an improvement and get, you know, a great job. And like I said before, you can do a good job, or you can do a great job, but you don't want to do a shit job, okay? You can change, reduce distances and gaps and things with the layer of padding we're gonna put on top of this burlap, but again, you don't want to have too much of the really soft stuff doing that, because it's not right. These are firm by nature. See, I'm stuffing the sides here to get the right, we don't want too much of a slope is what we don't want right there. But we don't want it to be loose either. But we're trying to get an idea how it is. Now this, what I'm doing right here, right now, is because this is it's like a grippy type finish put on this twine, because it's button twine. And the button twine, you want it to be grippy with a button, because you don't want it to slip and loosen up. And originally when they did their stuff, they used a flax twine, but I use this stuff and I just spray it with a little silicone, and it stops it from being super grippy. because it grabs any little fiber as you're putting it through the stuff, that it'll could make it very difficult. But if you just spray it with a little silicone, it will go right through. I like to be at more eye level with this, so I'm going to sit down for this. The reason why I'm doing this for, you say, why is he sewing that for in the front? Is because this will lock it right into place. It'll fix this. We'll have to feather it in with that too, with a little bit of cotton on top of that when we put the cover on. But it locks it in together that this won't move, because all we did was have staples on the front of that. In the old days, they would have the hair. The hair would be sewn in such a way, and I can do that way too, but we don't have any hair for that. So by having this preformed like roll like that, it does a nice job, and it keeps it from cutting through on the wood frame. But it also, this will keep it from tearing away. And it's you know, you gotta have strong fingers. Now, if I'm gonna be sewing with the needle through that, it's hard to sew through that cotton. You go through foam and cotton, it's hard. The average person would have a very difficult time trying to sew through that by hand, because you have to have strong fingers. There's a certain level of pain that you have to when you force that needle through, because it's hard. But you can see right now, we don't have that ridge line there, that sharp line of the edge line of that foam right there. I like the way that looked. That looks very natural. It looks like something that would be created with the hog hair. And hopefully, at the time when I was doing it, I was hoping that I wasn't going to have too much trouble on camera sewing that by hand. But I don't think, by looking into the future, I think that there shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now, if this was all loose hog hair, originally, if this was all loose hog hair, it'd be all put in there, it'd be all broken up and spread apart and fluffy, and you would put it over there and you spread it out as even as you can, and then you'd have to push more towards over here, because that hog hair would have to be hard like that. And they do it. They make... This is a 100-and-something-year-old piece of furniture. Now you see what they did? It's the same way. That's the hog hair that's just packed into a to the edge right there. That's drawn with picks. They would go like, and you push it, and then you sew it like I'm doing. See? But this is so old. It's like this. That's the pig hair, like I was telling you, and then it has that like sisal. I believe that's what that's called. You got a little straw, it looks like, in there too, and it's like a blend that they put it together. It was easy to work with, but they couldn't do that. Use that stuff here. It just wouldn't work. But the hair does. It works quite well. They'd go through the top and the bottom on this, and it would keep the hair from shifting, going like this by having these threads going through. They're not tight, but they're going through, and that's how they would be. And so we don't have to do that on this because it's a solid piece of foam in that area. But we do it right here because it locks it in place. Now the reason why we're sewing this for, and you say, well, you're just pulling it over the top, it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, it will. It'll go places if you don't do this. And the reason is that when it's stapled at the bottom, the burlap is, so you tie everything together. Even though I don't necessarily have to pull it extremely tight, because if you pull it extremely tight, it's going to have the pull marks right through the burlap really bad. We don't want to distort the burlap crazy. When they did the hog hair seats originally, they did this exact way. I fold that in a bunch of different directions so that it won't come undone. But your arms get a workout with this. It may seem easy, but I'm going to tell you right now, If the regular person forcing that needle through, they would be amazed how hard, they would probably just do a few stitches and they couldn't do it. So we got that nice. Now, you can't move that. Look at that, how solid that is. But it's coming along real nice though, isn't that? Doesn't that look nice? How nice and solid that is, and you know that that's gonna hold up nice. You know, you get worried, you know, when you do things on film over here, we're doing, you know, because with this type of trade, you can't just get it done first shot. And I think I've said this before. You have to fuss with things. If this piece was over 54 inches wide and it's not railroaded and it's a flower pattern, you're gonna have to have seams over here on the side. Life is much harder when you're doing that. You do it, but if it's a solid pattern fabric, it goes nicer. It's after a while you become like a machine. But you're keeping a visual line of the top stitch and the bottom stitch. And you want them to, you don't want to have pull marks in between those stitches where it's sunk in. We want it to look good. We want it to look even. That if somebody took this apart, that, you know, that if they know anything, they'd be happy that we did a great job. Yeah, well, that looks really nice, actually. Very happy how that come out. And that's good time, too. Now we're going to move to this here. Now we're going to put this one on, just to show you. We always got to keep going back and test fit and everything, so it's nice because you could put something together and then have the fabric be, when you put it together, you're going to have a wrinkle right there, and it'll loosen up the fabric, or you could do a bunch of different things. But we're not like that here. Experience tells us that you check. That foam is like a magnet. So what we did here, you can see here, we got to get the right curve of this piece here. So we marked it out with a marker here of the shape of the piece. And it's bigger, but we want it to fit inside here. And the foam is, the hair would have probably been a real nice choice, but the foam worked okay. It worked okay, it worked good. It'll work fine. Because we don't want these angles. And see, they shaved this angle down here because that's where that was going to be a spot. With having that angle down, it has a little bit more room for the pad to be thicker, but the foam is a little bit more forgiving. We'll pull a little tighter over here, it'll collapse it, and it'll do the same thing that they intended with a modern type material. So we're going to cut this. This is really what I decided that I wanted to use. I figured it was the closest to resemble what it would look like originally, with the amount of padding that was there. We took it apart, we know how it was, so we remember it. This is edge roll essentially too, I believe is what you could go by it. But the old terminology is finger edge, like your finger, the diameter of your finger. And we trim it with my Jack the Ripper. Oh, I forgot, this is how Jack the Ripper's supposed to do it. That's what they said in the show. Upholsterers go up. This is urethane foam. In the old days, in the 50s and so on, and 30s, I've seen the foam. They had latex foam. This is what they call a loaded foam. It was latex loaded with sand, silica. And for the people out there that have been around on this planet longer than some other people, they would see this orange dust underneath their cushions. That was the latex foam drying out and the silica separating. And you saw sand, is what you saw, silica. And, you know, so with the urethane foam like this, getting back to that as far as how long it'll last, this piece should last 50 years. The foam, 50-year lifespan, I would say, where it's not going to be crumbling or anything like that, but I'm saying that, you know, it all depends if it's how it's used, the environment, the heat, and all that. 50 years, 75 years, I would say, yeah. You can see they had a little chamfer there too. They put there for a reason, because they didn't want that sharp edge there. It cut it just, you'd feel it at some point. You could just do a nice job and you wouldn't even know it. So we're going to use that chamfer to put that there. This lasted quite long, but there was a time where this wasn't really usable. People may not have wanted to sit on this thing because it was jack-in-the-box springs, and it was the horsehair fabric too. If you ever sat on that stuff is like needles sticking through you. You go right through your pants because the hair is very bristly, you know. See, it's got, you don't feel any of the angles or anything. It's nice and rounded. You don't feel any of the sharp angles. That was a worry issue. Sometimes you could put something on like that, depending on how they made it, and the wood is more, they assembled it and they more protruded. It could be an issue where it pokes through the top. I was worried about that. Now, if you had hair, hog hair, you could feather it out and do it and work it, that you could go around just about anything. We're lucky that this worked out as nice as it did. I mean, not lucky, but it came out very nice. So now we're gonna put the burlap on. So I'm gonna have a cup of, right there, straight vodka I was drinking there. And it's refreshing. I like it. And you know, when I have to deal with Ed, I have to drink a lot, you know, because he's such a slave driver. So we don't want to try to correct something if it's pulled. You got a pull mark like this, you know. You wouldn't want that, you know. Sometimes you put a staple and it'll go in the soft wood. If it's old, it'll create a pull mark like this, you know. And you don't want that either. You try to avoid that. You can do it. So I take my hand, I walk it. There's a reason why I do that. A lot of the times with these pieces of furniture, I doubt if they're going to be in the family for 200 years. It's not going to be the same family. Although I did have a family that was that case up in Ashford, and it was a family piece, and it was original material like this one too. It was original horsehair fabric from the same period, and you can see it on my Yankee Upholstery page. And people can pull it up about this particular piece. It was done in a beautiful, a nice imported Italian tapestry. Gorgeous piece. It was beautiful. And it was stuffed with hay. It was stuffed with hay. And it lasted, it wasn't even straw, it was hay. You might not want to sit on this in the old stuff, the old way with your best girlfriend. Because I don't think she'd want to sit with you there. Not for the reason that she don't like you, is that the seats wasn't very comfortable. Back in the old days, Grandma wouldn't want you to fall asleep while you're having a conversation with her. It'd be quite rude. And she would never call you back again to come over for a cup of tea. And so, you know, there's just a certain way things are supposed to be. Making good time on this thing when I got people watching me. So we're sewing the sides here, right here, and we're doing the same thing in the front. And you can see how it's bringing everything, it's integrating everything together, and it'll keep the padding from shifting. What I want to do with the arms in the front like this, nobody in the back is going to touch that. And therefore, it's not necessary to have the edge roll here with people's hands. They're going to be around the front, they can feel it. And this is going to go around the wood. It's going to raise it up and give it a fuller look, because it's just, it was right close to the wood on that thing, and it don't look right. This locks it together. So always one person does at least a pair of things. You get both of those done that night, and then come morning time, you start another part of that piece fresh. Because you're looking for problems. I don't understand why, and you forget, and when you work with something, you get good at it, and that one day can make a big difference, a huge difference. All right, so we're gonna put these on now, just rest them in place, and we're gonna have to test fit to see how far we gotta cut this down here, but we want it to be just right. That's the thing about upholstery. You know, you want to test fit things, have things be right. There we go. It's all the way in there. It's tight for what it is. And then, with the magic of TV world, or internet world, we got miraculously done. So we got 2 pieces done. We made some good progress on this thing tonight, but again, I'm bleeding a little bit from working with that needle and thread, which is, it's tough on your hands, but it looks good. It's solid. You could sit on this right now and it'd be quite comfortable. So we're gonna call that a night tonight, because the next thing we got to do is we got to fit the back, set the height over here so that we don't have too much pressure on the back where everything wants to pop up and pushing down, and then it's compressed and it looks like hell because it's sunk. It just, you're better off to just fit it, and that'd be it. And then we got the back pieces that we got to upholster, and it's going pretty good. It's going pretty good. I mean, a little bit better than I expected tonight. Of course, I was worried the whole time that you're going to have problems and stuff, and then, you know, we're filming and so on, and I'm wasting people's times. I feel like that, but we're all set tonight, You Beal brothers are going to be getting into trouble tonight somewhere, but the bars are all closed, so.
Oh no! You didn't tell us that. What kind of a town is this? Stafford.
The bars are all
What
closed.
is it, a dry town or something?
It's a dry town everywhere.
That's it, the whole state's shut down.
That's right.